Hey, good Sunday morning to you once again. Glad you could join us here at RCCTV on the YouTube channel. Join us every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. here on this channel. And you can join us for some Bible study, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. We'll take a short break after that, and then we'll move on to Facebook and have our Sunday service. So God bless you for being here today. We're going to get into the Bible here in just a second when we get to the upper room. But I want to remind you about our prayer book. Our prayer book is a book of names, just like we're over in Philippians 4, where it tells us by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, make your desires known to the Lord. Well, this is names of people, friends of ours, friends of yours, acquaintances that we know, people at the church, friends of theirs, of our people here at the church, on and on and on. We put their names in here. And if you will send me a name and an address, a good address, I will send you one of our decals that says Rockin' Country Church is praying for me. You can put it on your car, on your refrigerator, your cabinets, wherever you want to put it, where you see it on a constant basis, and you will see that Rockin' Country Church is praying for you. Because we pray over this book quite a few times during the week at our Bible studies, and also we prayed about us and the guys here at the studio. We prayed over it earlier today. So anyway, we continually lift this up to the Lord because that's what He says do, all right? So glad you could be with us. Join us here in the upper room in just a few seconds. We're in the book of Hebrews in chapter 12. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the verse, but we're in chapter 12, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, okay? God bless you. See you in the upper room. Hey, once again, glad you could join us here in the upper room. We're in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 4. Book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 4. We're going to pick it up where we left off last week. It says, in your struggle against sin, do you struggle against sin? I struggle against sin. Everybody struggles against sin. Everybody has sin in their lives, and everybody struggles. If you're a true Christian, you realize the sin in your life, your struggle is not the fact that you do sin, because we all do. It's the fact that we want to not sin at all. See, so therefore it's a struggle for us. None of us want to displease God, and that's what sin does. It displeases God, especially of His children. And so what we're going to see now, and again, I believe Paul wrote the book of Hebrews, and so I'm going to use it as such. I believe what Paul is telling us here, he says, in your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding of your blood. I mean, you probably, heaven forbid, if you have, most likely have never paid the price of a flogging, if you will, like Jesus did, or it's called a scourging, to where He was beaten with the cat of nine tails to the point of where He would look like a ball of hamburger meat. You've never suffered anything like that. You probably have never been whipped with a cane. They did a lot of caning back then, and they still do it in other countries to where it draws blood. You've never been tied to a mast, if you will, on a ship and flogged as they did in the pirate days. You've never suffered that much because of your sin. Now, maybe some things happened because of your sin, and they weren't pleasant. But God sometimes does those things to give us correction. What Paul is saying here, though, is that you haven't gotten to the point of death. You haven't gotten to the point of shedding your blood for your sin. I pray you haven't. All right, let's pick it up in chapter 5, or verse 5. It says, and have you completely forgotten these words of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son? This is God talking to us, God looking at us from this viewpoint and His attitude towards us. It says, my son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when He rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one He loves. The Lord disciplines the one He loves. So in other words, God uses discipline sometimes to give us correction, to give us guidance, to give us encouragement to do things that we should be doing instead of doing the things that we are doing, you see. God uses disciplines. And then He goes on and says, and He chastens everyone who He accepts as His son. Now, what He's talking about whenever He says He chastens, it doesn't mean that He causes harm, but He can cause things to happen to us to make us realize, man, I should not have done this, or I should not have done that. And the results are whatever. Okay? That's our chastening. That's things that we have to pay the consequences for our own actions. We should anyway. And so therefore the chastening is us having to face our consequences. I'm going to give you a story here in just a little bit that is a true story that happened to me several years ago, and I knew it was God the moment that it started turning around. All right? And I'm going to share that with you in just a second, but I want to finish verse 7 here. It says, endure hardship as discipline. That's what Paul's saying. Endure your hardship as discipline. Endure your discipline as a redirection of your life. Endure your discipline as a guiding light instead of a hurt or instead of a pain and agony, if you will. Take it as, hey, I shouldn't have done this, and now I've got to pay the consequences, all right? God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? Think about that. What child, some fathers are not. Now, some fathers are not even in the picture. But what child is not disciplined out of love by a loving father? Now, sometimes we can think, well, my dad, beat us. And anyway, our childhood, my personal childhood, was not very good at all. However, there's a lot of dads who discipline their children out of love. Let's take a little infant, if you will, or not an infant, but let's say a toddler, 2, 3 years old or something like that. You love that child, and you want to see that child happy and bouncing around, etc., and having a great, great time. But yet if he does something and you tell him not to, him, her, you tell them not to, and they do it anyway, then you've got to correct them, right? You got to correct them. Let's just say that you have a toddler and he's crawling up on top of the coffee table. Well, we know that if he fell off, she fell off, they could really get hurt real bad because they're short, right? It's a long way to the floor for someone who's about 1.5 feet tall. So we want to teach them not to get on the coffee table. I mean, this is just a simple example. So what do we do with a toddler? Well, we put them in the corner. Well, they don't want to sit in the corner. They don't want to stand in the corner with their nose in the corner, if you will, and be away from everybody else. They want to be around everybody else. They want to be playing. They want to be happy. They want to be active. So you stick them in the corner, and that's discipline. It's not causing them any harm. It's just disciplining them. It's trying to correct them, trying to teach them something. That is exactly what God does to us. He does his best to teach us whatever it is that we're doing, we should not do, so that we will travel down the right paths of life. Sometimes it can be a little harsh because it takes a long time for us to learn the lesson. Sometimes it could really cost us, if you will, because we don't do what we should do. Now, the little story that I want to share with you is an actual story, and this happened to me several years ago. In my younger years, I was what you might call a speed demon. As a matter of fact, whenever I was 16 and got my driver's license, I had over 20 tickets within the first month of me getting my driver's license. I was put on probation by Judge Frank Berry in the city of Mesquite for 6 months. And if I got another ticket during that 6-month period, he was going to take my driver's license. Now, that's not the story I want to share with you, but that's the consequences of me having a lead foot and speeding and breaking the law. Now, I never seemed to learn. I mean, I got out of my probation. That's a whole other story. That's not the one I want to share with you. I got out of my probation, and I went along many years, but I still had a lead foot, and I have had my fair share of speeding tickets. I have paid more money to the government than I care to think of, all right, because of my speeding. One day, I was going to a lady's house because I'm a contractor. I was going to a lady's house to fix her dishwasher or to hook up her dishwasher, her new dishwasher. It was over in East Dallas, and I was on Plano Road. I remember this explicitly. I was over on Plano Road, and off of Plano Road, I believe it's called Church Road, I'm pretty sure, and I was on Church Road. Well, I was doing about 51, 52, somewhere around there, and speed limit's 35. I didn't know what the speed limit was, but then again, I really didn't care what the speed limit was. I was going to get to this job. Well, lo and behold, guess what? The lights were behind me. I got pulled over. And the police officer that came up to my car, at this time they had this little machine, and they could just type in whatever they type in, and it would basically print out my ticket, as opposed to him having to fill out this many different copies in a leaf booklet or whatever it is that they do, whatever you call that. All right, he had a little machine that he could do it all in electronically. This police officer pulled me over. And as he took my driver's license, took my insurance, everything was above board. And he went back to his vehicle to type out, whatever you want to call it, my ticket. And I'm sitting there, and I thought to myself, and I was going through some really tough times. I thought to myself, Lord, I deserve this ticket. I deserve this ticket. I was speeding. I guess I was. I don't know the speed limit, but I didn't care. I could have rest assured I was speeding. And I thought to myself, I know I deserve this ticket, but I'm going to ask you for mercy because I don't have the money to pay this ticket. It didn't matter what the ticket is. I didn't have the money to pay it. I mean, I was working and trying to do as much work as I could to make ends meet, and I did not have the money to pay this ticket. The police officer came back, and he says, you need to sign right here, etc. I said, look, I know I'm guilty. I know I shouldn't have been speeding. I did not know the speed limit, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure I was going faster than what I should have. I know it's my fault. I know that I am guilty. I'm not protesting whatsoever. This happened to me, friend. All right? I got the ticket. I signed it. Where he pulled me over, I just had to go between the houses, which was the alley was right in front of me, go between the alley, down the alley, probably 6, 7, 8 houses, and pull into the backyard, all 6-foot fences all the way around, pull into the backyard or in the back driveway by the garage, and then go inside this house and fix this lady's dishwasher. All the time I'm saying, God, I know I'm guilty. I know it's my fault. I know I was speeding, but I'm asking for mercy because I don't know how I'm going to pay it. And I don't know if the ticket was $50, $100, whatever. It didn't at that particular time, I did not have the money to pay this ticket. And I told God, I said, I am asking for mercy because I don't have the money and I can't go to jail. I had 2 kids to raise. So anyway, long story short, I go in there. I go in the backyard through the wood gate, through the backyard, into the lady's house, and there's like 7 or 8, she's a babysitter, and there's like 7 or 8 or 10 kids in there. All right, so I'm laying on the floor and I'm doing this dishwasher, and all of a sudden 2 of the kids come running up, and they said, hey, there's a policeman out back looking for you. And I thought, oh gosh, I know I don't have any warrants out. I know, at least I don't think I do. I know I'm not a criminal. I know I didn't do anything else. And again, I say to you, this happened to me. I got up, I went to the door, and this police officer was standing there. He had already told me, whenever I confessed to him, I said, look, I know I'm guilty. I don't know how I'm going to pay it. I deserve the ticket, but, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, well, I've already, done the ticket, so you're getting the ticket. And I said, I understand. I said, God will figure it out, or whatever. I said, here's the deal. The police officer came to the door. He knocked on the door. The kids run to me. They said, the policeman's looking for you. So I get up, and I go to the door, and he says, back over on that road where I clocked you, the speed limit sign has been knocked down. And so there was no way that you could have known what that speed limit was. And so I have reprinted in his little machine, I have reprinted I'm going to call it an excuse because I don't know exactly what the term was that he used, but he gave me basically another piece of paper which he signed with his special marker saying that the first ticket should be nullified because there was no way that I would know what the speed limit was. This police officer found me He did not know what house I was going to. Of course, he knew my truck because, I was in my truck. He saw it in the driveway. But he didn't know what house I was going to. This was a good probably half a mile from where he had set up his radar and all. There's no reason this police officer should have come and looked for me to give me an excuse for my ticket. But he did. And he got out of his squad car, went through the back gate, came up to the door, knocked on the door, told the kids to go get me so that he could give me this excuse, whatever they actually called it. I said, "You're kidding." He goes, "No." He says, "There is no way that he said, the sign's laying on the ground. There's no way you could have known what the speed limit was." He says, "You were speeding." And I said, "Hey, I told you I was speeding. I agree. But I did not know what the speed limit was. I did not really realize how fast I was over the speed limit, but I knew I was rest assured I was speeding because that's the way I drive." Shamefully say. But anyway, so he says, "This is what you're going to have to do." He says, "You're going to have to take both these tickets." The first ticket that he gave me was highlighted in a yellow highlighter. The second one was highlighted in a pink highlighter. All right? Whatever that signifies, I don't know, but that's the way it was. So he gave me, I already had the yellow ticket, of course. He gave me the one with the pink writing on it. And he says, "You need to take both of these to court and tell them, and they will dismiss the ticket." So I went to court. And when you go to court, traffic court, and this is Dallas County, when you go, because it's the county sheriff, when you go to court, they ask everybody who is pleading guilty, everybody who is, I think it's called no contest or whatever it is, everybody who either wants to just pay their fine or go on probation, and don't want anybody, doesn't want to fight it, I guess you'd say, they do all those people first. This place was packed. It was packed. And so I had to sit there and of course I needed to be at work. I had to sit there for a couple hours waiting for these, I think there were 4 district attorneys up there handling all these people. All right? I had to sit there and wait for all this to happen. After they got all that, they did it by last names, and of course my last name is a W, so I was one of the last people still in there. There were some people who were in there with their lawyers, which they were going to hear their case and on. So there was several of those. There were some people, a few other people just lingering around, whatever. So there were witnesses in the courtroom. All right, probably 10, 12 of them. I go up to the DA, and she says, and I can't remember word for word, verbatim or anything. She says, "What are you pleading? Why are you here?" And I says, "This is what happened. Blah, 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 blah. I get the yellow ticket. Blah, 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 blah. He comes and finds me and gives me this pink ticket that's supposed to excuse the yellow ticket." And she looked at me and she says, "You're telling me the police officer came to the house you were working on and found you driving down that alley to give you this pink ticket?" That's what I'm going to call it. I said, "Yes." She goes, "That doesn't happen." I said, "It happened. I mean, here's the yellow one, here's the pink one. I mean, this is his writing, not mine." She said, "That doesn't happen. We don't believe you. We don't know how you did this, but we don't believe you." I said, "It's his writing. It's not my writing. It's his ticket printed out on his machine." She says, "We will have to call the police officer in and hear him testify to this. You need to come back in," I don't know if it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was, "but you need to come back in a few weeks." I come back in a few weeks. I had to sit through the whole thing all over again. A couple hours for people who are pleading guilty or whatever they did, and wait till they get to the W's, etc. I go up there, and it's a different guy. All right? I explain blah, 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 yellow ticket, blah, 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 pink ticket, etc., etc., etc. He goes, "That doesn't happen." I said, "I know. That's what the other lady said." And, of course, she wasn't there. I said, "But it did happen." He says, we'll have to call the police officer in. I said, well, y'all are supposed to have the police officer here this week. That's the reason that I came back, is so that the police officer would be here. Well, let me see if he's out in the hall. So they go out there and they try to find the police officer. He's not there. They come back in and they said, you got to come back. I said, what? I said, maybe I just need to go ahead and pay the ticket and just be over with it, but I didn't have the money to pay it. I mean, I could have paid it, but it would certainly hurt my pocket. Anyway, they go and they call the police officer. They call the police officer up. And the police officer tells them over the phone that that is exactly what happened. And the DA guy is sitting right there on the phone, talking to the police officer on the phone. And he told the police officer, why did you do this? This doesn't happen. And whatever the police officer said, he goes, really? You actually did this? And the guy the police officer evidently said, yes, I did. And the guy should not have gotten the ticket, me. And the guy looks at me, the DA, he looks at me and he goes, I cannot believe this. This has never happened before. I don't understand why it has happened. And I told him right then, before the people in the audience, I said, because God did it. I said, because God did it. God showed me mercy. Now, he could have disciplined me. He could have chastised me. He could have done a lot of things. But for that day, God showed me mercy, and I was able to testify to that to all the people in that courtroom. Everybody was stunned in that courtroom. Everybody. Because of what this police officer did. And I said, this police officer did it. Now, I didn't pray in front of this police officer, tell him, oh, God, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Okay, I did that in my private whenever he was back doing my ticket, when he was sitting in the car doing my ticket. I did my praying, and I went to God in private. But I asked God to show me mercy. And lo and behold, God did. Man did not want to show me mercy. The DA says, this does not happen. You need to pay the ticket. You're guilty. I don't know how you came up with these papers, but this doesn't happen. But God. And they accepted it, and they took the yellow ticket, and they took the pink ticket, and they did whatever they do, and I never had to pay a penny. And I didn't have to come back to court either. And what I'm getting at is simply this. God will discipline and chastise those he loves. But our God is a merciful God. He is a merciful God. Now, will he show us mercy in all things? Well, sometimes not, because sometimes it does take a little knocking on the head to get our attention. It does take a little bit of discipline. It does take some chastising sometimes to really get our attention, to get us to change our ways. But friend, that is a true story that happened to me several years ago. And God showed me a perfect example of mercy. Because there's no way that police officer would have had to, other than God inspiring him to drive back down that road, go back down, because he saw me pull down the alley, go down that alley, drive down through it slowly, looking for my truck, getting out, coming up to the door, handing me that pink ticket, if you will, and then me having to go through the court and all that stuff. There's no way he would have done that. He didn't have to do that. There would be nothing required him to do that. The speed limit was 35. I was doing, I'm going to say 52, 53, because that would probably be pretty common for me. So there's no way and no reason whatsoever that should have happened, other than God showing me mercy and teaching me a lesson. And that day, he not only taught me a lesson, but I hope those people in that courtroom, the different DA people that were sitting there, I hope it taught them a lesson too. There is a God, and he is a merciful God. Now, is that going to happen all the time? No. Guess what? I've gotten tickets since then. I've prayed, and I still had to pay the ticket. Okay? So I'm not saying to test God in that at all. But I'm telling you, God takes care of his children. He loves his children. And he will take care of you and he'll never leave you nor forsake you. We're going to talk a little bit more about that next week, all right? But I want to leave on that note with you today, because I want you to know you have a merciful, loving Father that loves you in spite of you. Now, he will discipline you. He can chastise you in order to get your attention, in order to guide and direct for his glory and his glory alone. All right? So I hope that story sticks with you. It is a true story. It happened. All right? God bless you. We'll see you next week. Amen.